Hello guys, welcome back to another video. So, I know I haven't covered anything sort of politics related on YouTube in a while. But I was scrolling through my Instagram when I was lying in bed, and came across a thing that was being shouted out by Unilad on Instagram, obviously. And Gareth, do you mind? Get down. And it needs to be talked about. So there is a Tory MP, right? He's in his 70s, which will be really fucking obvious when I explain this. So his name is Sir Peter Bottomley, and I'm going to resist the urge to make the jokes about his name that he both deserves and really should see coming. But I'm going to resist them jokes. So he has branded living on 80k a year as being grim, and says it is desperately difficult for new parliamentarians to live on 80 grand a year. Now, just as a little thing for anyone that doesn't know, the average UK salary, right, meaning the salary that the majority of people in the UK are bringing in every year, tops out at £31,461 a year. And this tosspot says that living on 80 grand a year is grim and is desperately difficult. Fact, also forgetting that, they can claim the expenses to cover the costs of running an office, employing staff, having somewhere to live in London or their constituency, and travelling between Parliament and their constituency. So, don't forget as well, they claim a fuck ton in terms of expenses for travel, because most of them decide to travel around in limos and things like that instead of a regular car. Most of them claim money for their food, all of their food and their water and what they choose to drink and whatnot in the when they're at Parliament is massively subsidised by taxpayers, right? If you didn't know, now you know, because there's obviously a cafeteria or whatever at Parliament, and yeah, all the meals there are heavily subsidised by the taxpayer. And he has described living on 80 grand a year as... I just can't get over that statement. I really can't. How is living on 80 grand a year grim and desperately difficult? I myself live on 600 quid a year. A month, sorry. I'm on about 600 quid a month. Right? Somewhere between probably 6 to 800 a month I'm on, right? Once you factor in all the fucking pennies and all that shit. But about 6 to 800 quid a month I live on, right? When I first moved out and I first started living by myself when I was 18, I lived on £200 a month. My mum, who has fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, and liver disease, is on less than I am. Right? She's on less than I am every month, and was just turned down for PIP, right? Personal Independence Payment. She was just turned down for that. Even though fibromyalgia especially is a neurological condition that will only ever get worse. My mum also just spent 2 weeks lying in bed throwing up constantly every day. Yet she's on less money than I am. It is ridiculous, and it is just flat out offensive to try and claim that living on 80 grand a year is a problem. If 80 grand a year is a problem for you, you need to take a serious look around and take a serious look at what people in this country are actually living on, right? Take a look at what universal credit pays out. some of the people in this country that are on the lowest possible money got during COVID got a 20 quid a week uplift, right? Now what that means is they're going an extra 20 quid every week in their universal credit to help with the pandemic, right? That has just been stripped. That has just been took back off them, right? And once again, this cunt thinks it is desperately difficult to live on 80 grand a year. The backbone of our country, right, that being the truckers, right, people that drive the HGVs, deliver all the food to the supermarkets, all the fuel to petrol stations, right, all that sort of stuff, is about 30 grand a year. And this cunt is moaning about 80. It is, well, it's both mind-blowing and not at all surprising that a Tory MP thinks 80 grand a year is too little to live on. But tossers like these and his friends, while they will bitch and moan about 80 grand a year is too, it's not enough for them, for new parliamentarians to live on, but universal credit that they, and the benefit system in general, that him and his friends like him have hobbled, have crippled for the last 10 years or more, have done everything in their power to make it so that people on benefits get less money every year, have done everything in their power to make it as hard as possible for people to actually even get on benefits in the first place, right? I myself, right, with my autism, I am thankfully on PIP and ESA, right? Personal Independence Payment and Employment Support Allowance. Every year or two, I need to go and have a meeting with a couple of people, right? I need to sit in front of a couple of people and have a meeting with them about if I still need my ESA and my PIP. You know, for my autism. Something that is never going to go away. Because newsflash, I am always going to be autistic. It's not something that's ever going to change. It will never change. I will always be autistic. And I need to remind them of that and prove that every year or two, otherwise they stop my money. If I miss that meeting, they stop my money. If I reschedule that meeting twice, they stop my money. And this cunt, who is on 80 grand a year, who gets to expense pretty much anything he does government related, let's be real, right? If we're being fucking honest with ourselves, because what was it again? So expenses of running an office, right? So if he's got an office and he hires people, boom, done, right? Employing staff, again, same thing, right? Expensed, taxpayer pays for it. Having somewhere to live in London or their constituency, that can be expensed. So if they go out and they buy a nice ass fucking house, the type of house that no one else in this fucking country can afford unless they're a multi-millionaire, that gets paid for by the taxpayer. Travelling between Parliament and their constituency gets paid for by the taxpayer. Doesn't matter if they take a taxi, if they take a train, if they take a fucking limo and a helicopter. We pay for that shit. And he has the cheek, the absolute fucking cheek, to try and say that is desperately difficult to live on. I've said it for years, and I will keep fucking saying it. If you want to be an MP in this country, you should have to live on what the lowest people in the country bring in first, right? Of what the lowest benefits pay. You should have to live on universal credit as it is at the minute, right? If you want to be an MP, you should have to live on universal credit for at least 6 months. Get an actual feel of what people in this country actually go through every goddamn month. because it is mind-blowing how out of touch these people who are supposed to be running our country, the people who are meant to know how our country works so that they can run it the best possible, don't have any fucking idea in the slightest how this country actually works and how people in this country actually survive. Because a shit ton of people, if I'm not mistaken, the majority, what is it, sorry? I believe it's 40%. I believe, if I, again, correct as if I'm wrong in the comments, right? As far as I'm aware, 40% of people that are on universal credit work. Which means 40% of people in this country that are on universal credit are not being paid enough to fucking live on. And therefore need extra help from the government. And again, I will keep saying it because it needs to be fucking said. This cheeky, ignorant, self-entitled arsehole thinks that it is perfectly fine and perfectly reasonable to say that people living on that it is desperately difficult to live on 80 grand a year. I mean, I live on what? 7? So if we take the lowball estimate, right, and we do the 600. Calculator. 600 times by 12. 7,200. I'm on £7,200 a year, right? And if I take the 800, the high number, times by 12, 9,600. So either way, I'm on less than 10 grand a year, somewhere between 7 and 10 grand a year, and I managed to survive. Yet this cunt apparently thinks that 80 grand a year is too little. Everybody cry for the Tory MP making 80 grand a year, which, bear in mind as well, a lot of these cunts that are fucking Tory MPs are landlords, or they're fucking getting paid for doing conferences and writing books and all this shit. So at the very minimum, these people are on 80 grand a year. Very minimum. Not counting in all the shit they expense, not counting in, like I say, the fucking books that they write and all and fucking fact that the majority of Tory MPs are landlords. You know, not mentioning it, not even factoring in that shit. And they've got this cheap. Oh. It is both mind-blowing and, like I say, not at all surprising. And I'm sorry for going off on a rant on this channel, guys, but I'm fucking sick of this shit. These Tory cunts have been running our country for the last 11 years, have done nothing but make it worse. Cuts to the NHS, cuts to the police force, cuts to the fucking fire department, fucking cuts to the benefit system. Fucking, they have cut and they have trimmed and they have done everything they can to reduce the amount of money that the government spends 9 times out of 10 by harming the things that they are removing the money from. The rise in food bank usage over the last decade or more is astounding. The amount of people in poverty, the amount of people homeless is astounding in the rise that it has had over the last decade. The rise in children's homelessness and the rise in the amount of children that are going without food is astounding. And let's not forget as well that these Tory fuckwads are the exact ones that had to be bullied by a fucking footballer to feed children during the fucking pandemic. Because when the schools were shut, kids were going hungry because they relied that much on the fucking free school meals that they were given. Because people are that fucking hard up for cash. And they didn't want to cover that bill. They didn't want to pay for them fucking meals that, without, might I remind you, children were going fucking hungry. And they had to be bullied by a footballer called Marcus Rashford before they actually went, okay, yeah, fine, we'll cover the cost of meals, fine. And this cheeky fuck, this old prick, has the nerve to try and say that 80 grand a year isn't enough to live on. There is people working 3 fucking jobs trying to feed their families, and that are still unable to feed their families, working 3 jobs. And he has the cheek to say 80 grand a year isn't enough to live on. If that doesn't tell you what kind of people are running our government and how little of a fuck they give about you, I don't know what fucking will. I really don't at that point. But hey, who's gonna care what I say? I'm just some little autistic cunt with very little money, so who cares about my opinion?